Good morning to all the attendees, and this is a webinar on fraud and investigation. So if given opportunity, a brief about myself. Give me a second. So I'm a chartered accountant and company secretary by profession, and I am having a 20 years of corporate experience. And basically, I've worked into internal audits and taken care of frauds and even the kind of process controls which we should have. And I am a BSc chemistry honors, and after that I did my CSCS. So I always think to emphasize that also. Work experience, I have worked as audit heads and CFOs in various organizations, and in Hari Bhakti Group I spent a lot of time and learned a lot from there. So this is in brief about myself. Let's start the webinar. Fraud and investigation. So as a layman language, if we are not chartered accountants and we are not into what I can say corporate world, what a person thinks of a fraud. So since you are all mute, so I can speak on your behalf that when I think of a fraud, the first thing comes that someone betrays us. And that may be related to money, that may be related to assets, that may be related to anything. And fraud can happen in a company, at home, anywhere. But why it becomes important for a company? Because the company, the financial impact is very high. At home also it will be high, but with companies with a lot of people working and with the new corporate governance and all, the impact on the reputation of the company is also very high. So therefore, this is one of the very important aspect which we chartered accountants and the people who are into law, even company secretaries, they are taking it more seriously, even the companies also. And I will again emphasize with the Companies Act 2013, the responsibility of independent directors and auditors have increased a lot. And I would like to give an example. We are like a security guard. So suppose there is a home and we are having a lot of gold in that home. So internal control should be there, their proper lock and key and everything should be there. But if suppose some lapses are there, so we need to highlight to the management before the fraud happens. So going in further presentations, I will share a few of my personal experiences which I handled as a what I can say leading a fraud and investigation of few entities. So with this, let's go to the next slide. So the problem is that, just a second, I'm not able to see my own slide. So it is a continuing threat with a climbing cost. So this is the term which I have taken from one of the website and I liked it. So it's a continuous threat. If any company says that they have no threat of a fraud, that means they are saying a lie to themselves, because every company, and I'll tell you that fraud, there are three rationalizations of fraud which we see in later slides. But see, opportunity is something which is one of the most important thing. Unless you are very ethical, if you are having you find a bag having crores of rupees and you are a CEO of a company, you're a highly educated, won't you be tempted for a minute? So that this is a big amount. So opportunity is one thing. So if the company is having a lack of internal controls, process, procedures, no management overview, auditors are also not very serious. All these things give an opportunity to the employees. Who will do the fraud? Normally the employees in the company, third parties. So we should not give the opportunities. That is my first suggestion. Investigation and data all comes later. The first step should be that we should have such strong internal controls that the XYZ doesn't see the opportunity, and yes, the punishment should be very strong. So if a person, see, fraud and mistakes are different. So if a person does a mistake, that's okay. But if he has done a fraud, then we should have strict penal provisions. Not legally is different thing, within the company also. so that the other people dare to do it again. I hope you all agree with this thing. So what this presentation will cover, it will be having a definition of fraud and perspective, some statistics. Statistics, they keep on changing, so we can have the latest one also. But what I'm having a few months old, but that will be valid for this presentation. What are the types of frauds? What is the auditor's role? How to do investigation, and what are the management responsibilities? So this is one slide which I like very much. I'll go to the second line. I've read somewhere a thief is more smarter than a police. We have to be doubly smart. So frauds are now much in limelight due to social media. It's not that they were not there before. The last, this particular table says in India, companies are more concerned about revenues and controls, and I don't deny this. I've seen this in my 20 years of experience. I have seen a company which came from maybe Europe or Canada. They were setting a particular business in India. I can't tell the name. It's a very big group. You know, for 2 years, they tried to have a proper internal controls, proper system, proper IT department. Then they started the business. And if you ask any Indian business, first they would have a sales department and they would like to have a proper revenue to come on board. Then they will think of audit, of controls, and other things. That's sad, but it is changing slowly, but it is somewhere a fact. So, and I'll tell you that if you take care of internal controls initially, it pays you a lot later on. So, and if you do vice versa and some fraud happens, then you're gone. And nowadays we had too much examples, and one example which will be always live in everyone's mind is Satyam, what happened in Satyam, and then recently we have all this ILFS and lots of issues. So sorry to say, somewhere the management if is involved in the fraud, then the story becomes altogether different. Then the internal controls and other things may not work. There comes a corporate governance, independent directors and auditors role to inform the regulatory authorities about what I can say, the wrong mindset of the management, because it impacts the economy of the country to a greater extent. Because when the frauds are big by the big companies, then the impact is too high, and you all can see with the recent examples what happened to DHFL. And it's really unimaginable that all these things could happen to such big groups. And I always used to think that, oh, if it's a very big group, the controls are very strong, but that's not true at all. And with my audit experience, I realized this slowly. So the people who are attendees, and some of you are maybe in a job of auditors, some are in banks, and many of you must be consulting, and you must be thinking that what I'm telling you all know. I fully agree with that. But re-emphasize in your board meetings. I have participated in around how many, means 100 plus board meetings in various organizations, and I realized that independent director sometimes doesn't plays the role what he has to. So if your people are independent directors in the board are going to be, and a lot of you may be chartered accountants. So I think it's ethically very important that we do speak out to the management, and sometimes management is very ignorant. Board meeting happens in the boardroom, and a lot of presentations are given by CEO, and sometimes CEOs gives only a good position of the company, all goody that I've seen that. So as an auditor, it's our duty to tell to the management that what all are the lapses in the company. So this is what the slides talk about. So this I have spoken before also. So there are a lot of, this is a layman language. So when you think of a fraud, if someone deceive us with money, with emotions, with betray us, unfair to us. But in the legal terms, there are a lot of definitions. I have got this one. It is an intentional deception to secure unfair or unlawful gain, or to deprive victim of a legal right. In a short, it explains a lot of things. First thing, it is intentional. Fraud is always intentional. If it is not intentional, it's a mistake, and you can do a big mistake. There is no harm in that. At least you are not a fraudster. I was a CFO of a company, so one of the experience which I would like to share with you all. There was accounts team with me, and there was one of the accounts manager. He was very dedicated, very devoted, but he was, I don't know what used to happen to him. So one time he made a check, and it was supposed to be made of 1 lakh. He added 100, and it became 10 lakh. It actually happened. And I used to have a make a checker policy and all those things, so we could see that he has done this wrong. Though it's a mistake, but it would have had a big impact. So this is something which is different from fraud, but can we continue with such kind of employees? That was a big question, or what I can say, it was a issue which came into my mind, and he was very, very, very sincere. So if you people would have been in my place with that employee, you all must be having a different thinking how to deal with him. So what I did, I gave him just one chance more, that improvise, because this is one risk which I cannot handle for a company, and being a CFO of that company. And I still remember his name and face, and he did improve. And after that, there was no such error. So this is something delineating from fraud. What I realized in my 20 years of experience, that if you have too much work and too much pressure, then also mistakes happen. So we should take care of that. So come back to fraud. So this is what the definition is all about, the fraud. And if I go to the next slide, this is something which lots of us must have seen at our homes at a young age or now. So what I'm trying to say, just let's read it so that you don't, what I say and what we read is not different. An office clerk, when he takes 2 pencils and 1 rubber from office to his home for his son, is this not a fraud? Cheating. But for him, it is not at all a fraud. I'll explain it. When he takes 100 pencils and 50 rubbers from the stationery stock, now it seems it would have been a fraud in the office clerk eyes also. So everyone tries to justify their fraudulent activities, and when it is high in amount, it is that when it is noticed, it can be prevented. So this is what I've read, what is written, but I want to tell you all an example. So when I was in class 8, so there was a friend of my father, and he was in a government organization. So whenever his children needed some kind of stationery, he used to get it from office, which I find it very wrong. But it was not for him. So I used to discuss with my father and used to ask him that, is it not wrong? So he said it is wrong, but for that particular person, he thinks that it is nothing a cheating. It is his right that he can take few items from the office. So this is what a person justifies his fraudulent activities. And the way, if I see a murderer or a thief, how they survive or how they agree what they are doing. So as I said, that there is some justification, a person who does a fraudulent activities. So if you go to various fraud related articles on website and other details, you will find one thing, which is their justification, that see, I have not been given the promotion, I will take a revenge from the company and I will do a fraud. I'm right. What I'm doing is right. So these are where of the various justifications that fraudster will think and give to you, and which I have experienced also when I was doing job in various companies. Now I'm a practicing chartered accountant. This is not an advertisement. I know we're not allowed to do that. So I'm just looking at the watch. There are a lot of experiences which I want to share with you all. Let me go further. Okay, before I'll just share the statistics and then few of my experiences which will make this particular webinar more interesting for you all. So these are some of the statistics which is on a global basis, and I have taken from one of the big 4 reports, and they may be a change bit now. 47% of the companies experience fraud fraud seems to be anywhere and everywhere. 6 is average number of frauds reported per company. And US dollar 42 billion is the total fraud loss reported. It's for 1 year. Only 56% conducted the investigation. Only 1/3 reported the same to the board. It was from PwC. So if you all type fraud statistics PwC, yeah, there is a detailed article, and in that I have found that it changes with the country also. So if you put China, it gives the details of the fraud of the China. If you put any other country, I could not find India in that particular report. So these numbers may be a bit high in India, and I fully agree with this line that only 1/3 report the same to the board. Somewhere people think, oh, let's hide the fraud, let's not report it to the media, and the listed companies is definitely afraid because then they're gone. But we people who what we can say, that a small what I'm trying to say, that we chartered accountants and other people who are into this fraud and investigation, they can make a difference. So the people see, for example, when I was in the company as an auditors and audit head, I always reported the fraud to the board. And I'll tell you, it may sound strange that sometimes the CEOs and the head of departments of other departments, they used to say that don't report to the board. It's not that much important. Let this not to be told to the board. It happens, and it must have happened with all of you also. But then that's our job. And one thing which I've learned, that when we report to the board, we need not to be very aggressive and show that the position is very wrong unless it is very wrong. So we have to be very subtle, and we should, one word why my CEO used to say that we should not afraid the board. We should not make them panic. So if you are reporting something, don't look it like that. It's very horrible unless it is actually horrible. So these are some of the statistics, and with this, I just wanted to give a fair idea that we need to work on fraud, and how we as one person can make a difference. I would like to give you an example which all of you must have also seen or heard. Or there was what happened. There was one what I can say, that there was sea, and something wrong happened, and lots of fishes came on the surface, and they were dying because they were not in water. So everyone was looking and observing, and it was coming into reports and all. So one person, he came and he picked up one fish and put it in a water, and howsoever he saved the life of the fish. So the people said, what are you doing? There are thousands of fish. How does it make a difference? You are picking one fish and all. So he said one line, which I remember very well. It makes a difference to that one fish. It makes a difference to that one company where you are working, and when we are combine it, it makes a difference to the whole economy of the India. I may sound very what I can say philosophical, something like that, but I really believe in this. And before I proceed further, let me tell you that wherever I worked as an audit, and at present also I'm doing some audits, ethics is something on the top, which for which there is no compromise. There was a salesperson who was working with me, just to make it a bit interesting. What I'm running out of time, but I think people will enjoy it. There was a salesperson, and he did not got an increment. So I went for an audit to the branch. So I told him that last year you had your target was met 100%, and this year your target was met only just 5 to 10%. He said, I did not got my increment. I will not work properly. I said, horrible, yaar. How can you do that? So means that is, I was surprised that how, because we people are very committed to our work. Whether we get increment, yes or no, that's a different thing. But our work should not be questioned for, and there should be no question on that. That's the way I work. So that was one example. Types of frauds. These terms you all must have heard many times. Bribery and corruption. Yes.
Ms. Deepa, can you make that presentation through slideshow mode, please?
Oh, acha. Yeah. I thought we were getting in that way. Sure. Now it's better.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So there are types of frauds. These are the terms which you all must have listened or heard or seen many times. Bribery and corruption, regulatory non-compliance, frauds, diversion, theft of goods, internet and cyber fraud, financial statement fraud, and the last one is what? Because I could not see my slide fully. Intellectual property fraud. Am I right? Yes. So these are the terms of various kinds of frauds that do happen. These kind of frauds do happen. We will go for a few of the frauds. We will go in detail. Okay, this slide I'm quite afraid to share, but I have to. See, I found it somewhere in the Google, and it was some of the maybe reliable website. They told about top 10 scamming countries which are having the scams, and they have a lot of in detail about each country. So India was there, unfortunately. Nigeria, India, China, Brazil, Pakistan, Indonesia, Venezuela, South Africa, Philippines, Romania. This is just for what I can say as an interesting fact. You can take it, but somewhere it's a bit true also. So we should work on that. Okay, what are the major types of frauds? Assets misappropriation, bribery and corruption, financial statement deception. So these are some of the major types of fraud. So before I proceed further with these types of frauds, let me give you one example of a fraud. I was working in a company which was into home loans. So they did I think loan of 1 CR, yes, to a person, and there was such big, thick files with lots of documents with everything, and that shown that the customer was genuine. So what happens when in the loan companies, whether it's a home loan, whether it is any other kind of loan, unfortunately, the documents are forged in India quite easily. And therefore, we have we were having this RCU department also, quality check also. But then also, so that just what I was telling you, so that that particular account become NPA. So we all know what is an NPA. So if a person doesn't pay for the 3 months, it becomes an NPA. So when it became an NPA, then it went to the highlight of the CEO also, to auditors also, to everyone. And I'll tell you, when a file is home loan file is approved, it goes through operation, it goes through credit approvals, and then it goes to quality check. After that, it is approved. And you know what that person has done? He has done identity fraud. We went to the particular shop or location which he has given in his particular address, and we found that there was no one like him there, and the people said that someone lived here for a few months and then he left. But identity fraud means the Aadhaar card and other documents were having a photo of someone else, address of someone else. Address, suppose the person stays at Ghatkopar, the photo and addresses of someone from any other place. And that's the way that he took a 1 CR loan, and we later on realized that he has taken the same way loans from other banks also, NBFCs also, because when we raised a case, then we need to file a case and all. Then the lawyer came to us that he has done the same thing with other places also. And it was a big setback because it was not a very big home loan company. So 1 CR was a big setback for them. So now why I'm telling this example, that the kind of frauds which happens are there, means they are there live in the companies, and we auditors and all people who are listening to me and who may later on listen to this particular webinar, it's a humble request that we need to take fraud seriously. And one more thing, maybe auditors may be in the audience, that you know what happens sometimes. It is said that if the fraud happens, what the auditors were doing, it's a normal statement which is nowadays very common. Even I read the articles when this Satyam fraud happened, it was what the auditors were doing. In that case, the auditors were involved. Recently, few more frauds, what the auditors were doing. Then I read an article in the CA, in our old CA magazine, CI magazine, which we get magazine, or what you can say, book, that particular book monthly. In that, even the president and the people agreed that we can't put everything on. क्या कहते हैं कि पूरा सब जो है कि वो ऑडिटर ने किया. Auditor is the second check. The first check is the operations, the team, the people there. So if people say to you that you could not find a fraud finding is not the job of an auditor unless it's typically a fraud fundster kind of a job. This designation is there. So the people who are chartered, they know very well the auditor is a watchdog, not bloodhound. That is one of the statements which we learn when we join CA. So I want to specify this to all the people that it's not our job to find frauds, but we have to be very vigilant. And when we find a fraud and report to the management, it's really very commendable. And I have experienced those things many a times. So let's come back to the presentation. So I think I can speak a lot without the presentation also. Asset misappropriation, this is typical term. It can be defined as a theft of an organization assets. This often includes the misuse of a company's resource and is the most rampant in occupational settings. It is also the least costly. Examples of asset misrepresentation include fake payroll schemes, fake billing, false invoices, fake vendor or fake employee payment schemes. And I have found this kind of fraud lot of in India. And I can't say about other countries because I've not done audit in any other country. So, but yes, I found this in India, and it's easily we can easily get it. You can easily find it. One of the most easiest fraud is take away the asset of the company. So the company which is having lot of branches, I found that their fixed asset register is never updated. I'm sorry to say that there is no reconciliation even by the finance department. They say it's not my job. Admin says it's not my job. So I don't know whose job it is. And in few of the places where I worked, it never happened that the fixed asset got reconciled, and it gave an opportunity to employees at the branches to take away the assets. Who will get to know? And if you total those assets and make it some value, it is very high. It's a big loss to the company. So this is one area which you should be careful of. Sorry. Bribery and corruption. Oh my God. Bribery involves giving or receiving an unearned gain, usually in the form of money, to influence someone's decision. Corruption is an illegitimate practice aimed at gaining an unfair advantage, usually at the expense of others. Bribery is a form of corruption and is rampant in many companies. Kickbacks, conflict of interest. Oh my God, the T is not there. I'm very sorry. I have seen the people not taking, but they have taken the bribe, and I personally don't agree to that concept. And if in India bribery and corruption reduce, it will make a drastic change, and you must have heard this many times. But can we make it? Can we make some help in this? So I can say yes. How? When I worked in few of the companies, our CEOs and management, they were quite ethical. They wanted us to find that whether bribery has been given or not. So if you all know, there is a procedure called welcome call. So what happens when a loan is given, after within 7-8 days, a call is made and it is asked whether you have given any bribe or not. So you will say that no one will say, and the person will not agree to that, means the person has taken the loan. But I have found that they do tell us that yes, we have given the bribe. And here again, I would like to give one of the personal example with my experience in office. There was a branch in somewhere in South India. And you know what happened when the person became an NPA, that customer, and then we followed him up for the outstanding. Then he told us the whole story that how he gave a big bribe to XYZ and then he got the loan. So that way, and he even wrote it on a letter to us. He get it recorded with us, and then we took action against the particular employee. And what we used to do, this we all can do. What we used to do, we used to highlight. Nowadays, we have got group in WhatsApp, otherwise in the mails. These are the few people who were caught red-handed or who were caught with the wrongdoings, frauds. We highlight their names, and you know, sometimes, very rare, various banks and various NBFCs, they have their own groups, big. So you can highlight the name of the person in that group. So it may be very difficult for him to get a job also. So these are the ways. If the fraud is very what I can say. I know it's not easy to play with the career of a person, but I don't think so. Fraud is an exception. Fraud needs to be punished. So this is the way we used to highlight, and it deters other companies for doing the same. Then next is financial deception. This type is the least common and easily the most expensive. A financial statement fraud is committed when an individual misrepresents an organization's financial situation. Satyam, Satyam, Satyam. I saw a particular YouTube video of around 10 to 15 minutes, which clearly highlighted what happened. And I was surprised to see they have flushed the accounts like anything. I don't know what is the motivation. Is it only money? It can be done through omission of amounts, intentional misstatement of finances to defraud financial statement. Financial statement misrepresentation typically includes overstating or understating profits, revenues, assets, overstating or understating losses, expenses, and liabilities. Examples are increased annual bonuses, stock price manipulation, favorable loan terms. So this all you must have seen, you must have experienced. And one of the most important thing in the fraud is to get the evidence. So as I was telling you, even if the customer says he has taken a bribe, unless there is an evidence for the same, and even a letter written by the customer, as per my understanding, it was not presentable in the court of law. So frauds, sometimes we get to know the fraud is happening, so we need to understand or grab it. That means so that we can get an evidence. So here again an example. Just let me see how many slides are pending. Not much more, so I can give you more examples from my experience. So there was a person. So what happened that he took a loan from the company, and then the person died. Suppose the person of name is A. Then, according to the nominee, his amount was supposed to be given to B, whomsoever is the nominee. So what happened? The check was given to the branch, and the branch head was supposed to give the check to that nominee. So nominee called us after a few months, and he said, "I've not received my check, and I've not received my money." But you know, the check got cleared in the books of account. This is true. This is I have seen. And I have investigated this particular case, and I'm very proud the way I did it. So I can't disclose the name of the company, but let me share with you, I'm still having time, how it happened. So what I did, I checked in the financials of our company. It got cleared, but you will be surprised to know there are some discounting of checks happened. I don't know how it happens, but if you give a check to suppose X, and if the check is 1 lakh, they will take some amount and give you 90,000, and it's just something means fraud with the bank and all. Means it's not actual clearing, but it did happen. So I went to the branch, I spoke to that particular person, and he said, I have not done anything. I have not financed any check. I have given it to the nominee and all those things. Then we slowly spoke to the other employees also, and they said that check was lying in the drawer for long, and he was not giving it to the nominee and all and all. And then I faced that particular employee, suppose its name is B, and we sat face to face. And I told him that, see, I'm having evidences that how it got discounted and how money is not received. So slowly he agreed that yes, the madam knows the truth. And then he replied in the letter, and he agreed that he has done that fraud. And then we took an action. We removed him from the company. So these are few of the short ways, and I was more into process audit. So maybe computer frauds examples I may not give, but I know that forensic audit. I've done the forensic audit course also from the CS Institute, but my practical experience is not much in that. But forensic audit is one of the very lucrative and interesting area, and my few friends work in that. So that is also one of the ways of finding the frauds, so the trail in the computer, and there the evidences are upfront. So even in Satyam fraud, there was a lot of forensic audit which happened later on, which I saw. Okay, red flags, red flags. So red flags doesn't mean red flags. Red flags means that something is happening in the company which give you a feeling that something wrong is happening. So we should be as an auditor, as an independent director, as a consultant, as advisory. When you're inside the organization, the red flags are easily observable. So we were having the whistleblowing policy in one of the company where I was working. So we got few mails from an anonymous authority. We allowed that something wrong is happening in a branch, to the extent that late sitting were happening, and other things were happening other than the normal work, and drinking and all, and lots of things. So that was a kind of whistleblower, and then we secretly put the CCTV in that branch, and then later on we observed that yes, things were happening wrong, and even taking the bribe from the customer. Everything was happening openly, because when there are lots of branches, the control somewhere loosens. So that should be, we should enforce in the various meetings that what I can say, that the departmental heads, they should have surprise visit to the branches. As an auditor, we do. So I used to visit the branch and inform only a day in advance, because otherwise they plan out everything. That's a normal observation. Next is what? Preventing and detecting fraud through whistleblower hotlines, stat audit, internal audit, accident, IT controls. So internal audit and stat audit, they are there. I mean, they, as I said, that they're not fraud finders, but since they look into process procedures quite in deep, so they will realize where are the aspects of frauds are there. Whistleblower hotline, I give an example. So you can give a suggestion to your board or even to your CEO that you can have an email on which anyone can write anything, and that mail in my company was accessible to me, CEO, and HR. No, not HR also, only auditor and CEO, because HR can also be sometime biased. So we can have that particular ID, and people can tell whatever wrong they are seeing. By accident, it does happens, and IT controls are very important. IT controls are a normal example. When we used to do audit, we used to find that people are watching movies and what I can say, this songs in the office time, after office time, and they got caught because of the history and all. So that is not a. So it's a big question: is it a fraud watching movies at the time of office hours? Subjective question. It's not a fraud, but it's a big wrongdoing. So we should take an action. You think you have discovered a fraud, now what to do? So these are some of the steps which let's see that how far they're practical. So when you have discovered a fraud, with my experience, first of all, we need to be very confidential. It should not happen that everyone gets to know that, because then the fraudster may run away. So you have to be very careful. You have to put a committee who checks on the frauds. You have to get the evidences, and sometimes legal help needs to be taken. But my experience, the help of police, oh my god, they, I don't know, it's getting recorded, they take money from the person who gives the complaint, and from the other side also, and then they first help us and then later on release the fraudster also. Means that I have seen as an experience, and really very sad. So what police can do, God knows, but yes, we can put him into the jail and on. So we, means there are a lot of things you can do, and the main purpose is to deter others, and yes, a person should get the punishment. So let's some theoretical things. Fraud is investigated internally as I was saying, auditors. They are given the job of fraud investigation many a times. Appropriate internal action is taken against the fraudster. Legal action taken against the auditor. An external agency hired to investigate the fraud. Legal action taken against the auditor if the auditor was involved in that fraud, even that is proved clearly. So there are other cases other than Satyam where fraud happened. An auditor has proved that I have taken all care, and he has shown his working papers and everything. So the allegation was not on the auditor. So that is an important point. Okay, when a potential fraud is first discovered, the following few hours or days can be very confusing and stressful if the organization is unprepared, and normally they are unprepared for the frauds. Just a second, let me move it upside. Fraudsters rarely restrict their activities to only one modus operandi or method. Therefore, every effort should be made to obtain as much as information as possible before anyone is questioned, confronted, or interviewed. See, there is a company by Mr. Chetan Dalal. So I'm not promoting him, but I worked with him. He is a chartered accountant, I don't know, but he works specifically in frauds and investigations. Specifically. And you know, when I went to his office, there was locked. You have to ring the bell, only that the office opens. And if you can't find his phone number on his website also. But it was an interesting but risky work. So I've done few work with them, and one of the example which I would like to share with you all, that I did an audit of a pilot investigation, not audit. He was earning some crores, but he took the loan and he vanished away. So that how I investigated. That was all. We'll do some another session because the time is running fast. Okay, let's move further. It is vital that all allegations of fraud are treated seriously and that responsibility for handling fraud incidents is assigned to a senior trusted individual or collection of individuals. Very important. Normally take collection of individuals because then there is no bias, and even one person is sometimes very risky. So in because I've worked a lot in the loan company, so we needed to visit the customer, and sometimes big politicians were also involved in the fraud of, so what to say. So you have to have a collection of individuals so that they all work together. It is vital that all allegations of fraud are treated seriously and that the responsibility is the same line again. I'm sorry, let's move further. Typical fraud response plan. So you have a fraud response team, and you have civil and criminal response, suspicions, and preservation of evidence. So these are typically frauds which are happening. What do I mean by typical frauds? I'm saying yes, normal frauds. Okay, it's again the same, which I have put in two formats. So okay, this is a good. This is a checklist which I found, and I liked it very much. So let me just go through it. Alert the fraud incident manager that an allegation or suspicion exists. So if you're having a fraud incident manager, tell them. But normally in India, normally auditors are given this task. Document date, time, and details of initial report discovery. So when I investigated fraud, I used to have a one particular file and even soft copy with all the evidences, photos, videos, calls, telephonic calls needs to be recorded. So I was typical of police at that time. And so documentation is very important. Take notes of all the observations and actions. If something is worth taking a mental note, it is worth a written note. Maintain confidentiality, only inform those people who need to know. Very, very, very important. Unwarranted disclosure can seriously damage potential successful investigations. Do not confront the suspect. I have done investigations where I have to speak to the fraudster, the person on whom allegations were there. And initially they will say, no, 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 we've not done anything, and XYZ. And I normally used to have HR and a particular head of department with me. In one case, we took the custody of the phone with proper legal procedure, and we found lot of WhatsApp with the wrong authority, and he has taken lots of bribes which are recorded in the WhatsApp. I still remember one statement. They were talking on the WhatsApp, iska kitna, what you will take for this particular file, and he was replying this much. मतलब वो पूरा WhatsApp में पूरा दिखा. So with this, I just WhatsApp के नाम से मुझे याद आ गया कि आर्यन खान के WhatsApp में भी बहुत कुछ था. So sorry, come back. So WhatsApp is a risky thing. So let's be careful. Come back, come back, come back. Maintain confidentiality. Write out in the full the suspected act or wrongdoing, including what is alleged to have occurred, who is alleged to have committed the act, is the activity continuing, where did it occur, what is the value of the loss, who knows the activity. It's very important, I'm telling you. And you have to have all these things because this will help you first of all to prove the fraudster. In the legal action, it will help you when you report to your seniors, it will help you. Identify all documentary and other evidence connected to the activity. Before I proceed further, in one of my example, I have kept all my evidences in one of my, I was a CFO in that company, in my cabin in the locker in the Almira, and that vanished away. Someone took that away. So it's very important. So I was having a lot of documents in the soft copy, so I could proceed further. Identify all documentary and other evidences connected to the activity, invoices, contracts, purchase orders, checks, computers, credit card statements. Obtain evidence and place in a secure area. That's my point. Protect evidence from damage or contamination, which happened to me. I should have seen this checklist at that time. List each item individually, taking note of accusation, inclusive of time, date, and location, and where the item was securely stored. Identify all potential witnesses. Unless electronic evidence is in the process of being destroyed, do not go into the suspect target computer systems. In one of my experiences in investigation, we took the laptop of the potential fraudster because we were not sure at that time. You know what we did? He was in the company from the last 8 to 10 years. So if I asked him the laptop, he would not have ever given me. So what we did at the end of the day, we said that all the head of departments need to submit their laptops and we need to do some virus check and all, and next day they all can take it. So in that way, we took his laptop, and we gave it to the forensic department. Yeah. If possible, secure and remove suspects' access to relevant computer systems. Do not allow IT department to examine computer, but you have to stop the access of the potential fraudster to various things. Consider other potential suspects and extent of fraud. Okay, only a few more slides. I think I'll do it fast. Impact of Companies Act, which I said initially also, that there is a greater accountability on the board of directors, and internal auditors may not be made liable if they've done audit with due authenticity. Fraud rationalization, this I should have given in the start, but I thought to close the PPT with this. The fraud triangle is a framework in auditing to explain the reason behind an individual's decision to commit fraud. The fraud triangle outlines three components: opportunity, incentive, and rationalization. Opportunity, incentive, and rationalization. So what I can do are OIR, normally short forms to remember. Opportunity, incentive, rationalization. Opportunity refers to circumstances that allow fraud to occur. As I was telling in the start of my presentation, if there is an opportunity, a person will do a fraud for sure. If you are having the, suppose, cash amounting to rupees 40 lakhs lying unsuspected in a drawer in the finance team, so then they will take the money. You all will share and say that don't inform anyone. So you should not give an opportunity. Therefore, we have locks and keys. Why we put lock and key at our home? And a thief or a person who wants to break the law, he will break the law. They have all the procedures, but I don't want to give an opportunity to my neighbor who can come and take away the mobiles and everything from my home. So opportunity. Incentive, already called pressure, refers to an employee's mindset towards committing fraud. So he may not have got his incentive or XYZ. These are the reasons he wants some advantage. Rationalization, I really like this, refers to an individual justification for committing. There is a justification for everything. So if you could not clear a C exam, there was a justification at that time. Paper was hard. If you don't get a job, justification. Employer was not good. He was not in a good mood. Just an example on a lighter note. So a fraudster, a thief, they definitely justify themselves. Only then they can survive. So that is, these are three components of a fraud: opportunity, incentive, rationalization. And with this, I end my presentation. And thanks a lot to the viewers to listening me for so long. And